Unbelievable moment. Police dog's incredible reaction to elderly man revealed a hidden kindness. The day began like any other, a dull gray sky looming over the small Midwestern town. Officer Lisa, a dedicated policewoman, stepped onto her beat. Max, her loyal golden retriever, bounding by her side. As they turned a corner, she spotted him, an elderly man, Thomas, sitting alone on his porch, his eyes distant, reflecting a sadness she couldn't ignore. Without thinking, she guided Max closer, a decision that would unwittingly unravel the threads of her life. Max leaped forward, tail wagging, determination driving his furry body. He had an uncanny ability to sense when someone was in distress. Within moments, he reached Thomas, who appeared lost in a haze of nostalgia, likely reminiscent of a love long lost. The blanket of loneliness around him was palpable. Yet, as Max approached, Thomas's forlorn expression shifted. A flicker of memory sparked within him, and a smile, pure and genuine, radiated across his weathered face. This was not just coincidence. Lisa recalled Thomas. He had been her favorite teacher, inspiring her childhood dreams of law enforcement. She felt as if she had stumbled upon an oasis in the desert of her profession, yet doubt crept in. Did he even remember her? Was it inappropriate for her to intrude in his solitude? "Hey there, Thomas! It's me, Officer Lisa," she called out, unsure of herself, her voice breaking slightly under the weight of nostalgia. Thomas's face transformed, confusion mixing with recognition. She glimpsed a story within its depths, a time when laughter filled this very porch. And yet the years apart had created an unbridgeable chasm that loomed large. Before they could delve deeper into this newfound connection, the crisis within the town perpetrated a cruel reminder. The mayor's ominous budget cuts threatened critical services meant to support the elderly, and the thought filled Lisa with dread. Could she confront the mayor? The notion overwhelmed her, a tempest in her mind. As a police officer, her duty to protect extended beyond law enforcement. It encompassed the community she served. But in that moment of clarity, a sense of helplessness took hold. What if her voice was too small against the tide of bureaucracy? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Pressures mounted. Lisa felt the responsibility weighing heavily on her shoulders. She would have to advocate for Thomas and countless others like him. "What if I fail?" whispered a small voice in the corner of her mind, drowning in uncertainty. The fear of risking her career to challenge the mayor's narrow vision paralyzed her. What if the cuts went through and she was powerless to help? As she returned her gaze to Thomas, the warm, gentle wisdom in his eyes no longer inspired her. It amplified her anxiety. This bond she felt with him, born out of shared experiences, was now a lifeline she couldn't bear to let go. Yet time would not wait. Moments of soaring hope were quickly crushed under the weight of what could be lost, and the air thickened with an impending storm, leaving her gripping the reality of a decision that would weave their fates together, or tear them apart forever. Lisa stood in a palpable silence, the air thick with anticipatory dread. The weight of her badge felt heavier than usual, not merely an emblem of authority but a forge of responsibility ready to shape her actions. Glancing at Thomas's expression, she experienced an unsettling blend of nostalgia and obligation. Their eyes locked in a quaint yet potent dance of recognition, and Lisa felt the flame of dormant courage flicker within her. It was time to act. But how? This looming confrontation with the mayor felt insurmountable. The thought of marching into City Hall, opposing an institution perpetually insulated from genuine human stories, sent shivers down her spine. The memories of carefree childhood days spent learning from Thomas clashed with the stark, impactful burden of her position, a police officer tasked with guarding not just the law, but the lives woven within the community. "Thomas," she said softly, the name slipping through her lips with the gentleness of a secret. What will happen to you if these cuts go through? Will you have the support you need? Each question trembled with urgency, spurring a veiled anger against the indifference surrounding the elderly. He paused, his gaze drifting toward the distant street where children once played, their laughter now a faded echo. My days are waning, Officer Lisa. I'm not sure they'll matter to anyone, but I can't help but hope. I suppose I want to believe my memories still have a place in this world. Each word from Thomas, a gentle push against Lisa's internal barricade, urged her thoughts into frantic exploration. What if she devoted herself to not just reclaiming his dignity, but advocating for all those like him? The notion catalyzed a latent desire within her. She could be a voice. After all, she had worn the badge for years, enforcing rules and regulations. Surely she could advocate for something genuinely good. But that required stepping boldly into a realm she feared, open confrontation. Thomas, I think I need to do something. I can't let this happen. I won't just stand by. Lisa's voice caught fire, ignited by purpose. She felt the surge of adrenaline coursing through her veins as she pictured herself in the mayor's office, words spilling forth passionately, resolute against the tide of cuts. But the vivid visualization was punctuated by creeping doubt. What if I'm not taken seriously? What if I get suspended? The voice of fear she recognized, always lurking to undermine. Yet beneath the uncertainty, a growing resolve hummed in her heart. If she truly wished to protect those who needed her, she had to embrace the risk of her own vulnerability. With resolve, she stood tall against indecision. In that moment, Lisa understood. She was not just the uniform she wore, but the conviction behind it. Max, sensing her shift, nudged her leg, grounding her in the present. Together, they could make waves, however small, against a current of apathy. I'll go speak with the mayor after my shift, she decided, pulling back her shoulders. The air around them buzzed with fresh energy, possibilities blooming like spring flowers through the remnants of winter. One step at a time, she thought, reminding herself that progress didn't always require grand gestures. As she resumed her patrol, each step felt lighter, the burdens of expectation transforming into a purposeful stride. But as she rounded the corner, a shadow fell over her lightened spirit. A familiar figure stood waiting ahead, a stern look painted across the mayor's face. The moment of truth was approaching faster than she had anticipated. Lisa's heart raced, the consequences of confrontation weighing heavily on her mind. Would she back down or press forward, wanting to embrace the role of changemaker? The stakes had never felt higher. Lisa adjusted her posture as she approached the mayor, her muscles tensing in response to the looming confrontation. The mayor's disapproving gaze seemed to bore into her, and for a split second, doubt resurfaced, dragging her down a slippery slope of anxiety. She had envisioned this moment 1,000 times in her head, rehearsing the words that could break down the walls of indifference surrounding the mayor's administration. Yet here she was, frozen in place, clutching at her resolve as if it were a lifeline. Lisa, the mayor began, voice sharp and clear, this isn't the time to play games with the budget. The words hung in the air heavy with implication. Lisa felt the sting of his condescension, not because she had ever engaged in games, but because this was not a game to her. It was real lives at stake. Steeling her resolve, she focused on the infinite possibilities that lay within her control. With each slow breath, she felt clarity piercing through confusion. Mr. Mayor, she said, her voice steady, surprising even herself. I'm not here to play games. I'm here to talk about the impact of these cuts on the elderly in our community. The words escaped her mouth more confidently than she had anticipated. There was a tremor in her resolve, yet it vibrated with authenticity. The mayor raised an eyebrow, scrutinizing her closely. You think your perspective matters here? You're a police officer, Lisa, not a policymaker. The derision was palpable. She could sense him preparing to dismiss her outright, but the memory of Thomas's distant gaze ignited a fire in her chest. The stories of people like Thomas matter. They're not just statistics. They live and breathe in the shadows of policy decisions. Each word was now a power builder, elevating her stance. She realized that to be effective in this moment, she needed to relate her experiences with community and leverage her position for something greater. "Officer Lisa, you need to understand," the mayor said, crossing his arms defensively. "The budget must be balanced. There are priorities, choices. And sometimes those choices hurt the very people we claim to serve," she countered, staring unflinchingly into his hardened exterior. "We don't exist in silos. This isn't about numbers. It's about humanity." A flicker of something passed across the mayor's face. Uncertainty, perhaps? For a brief instant, it felt as if she had reached him. And then, just as quickly, his demeanor stiffened. "This isn't the way to handle your frustrations. I suggest you stick to your duties and leave the budgeting to us." Lisa's heart sank momentarily. It was a calculated attempt to disarm her. Perhaps he thought she would turn away, retreat back to her patrols with a bruised ego. Yet turbulent emotions surged within her, entangling frustration with newfound determination. This was a defining moment for her, a crossroads of personal growth. In a rush of conviction, Lisa stepped closer, her voice lower but firmer. "I'm ready to fight for the people who have been silenced. This isn't just a role for me. It's a commitment. I have stood alongside my community, and I won't stand by while those who need our support are cast aside. If you continue down this path of indifference, I'll make it my mission to raise awareness about the consequences of these decisions, regardless of the personal cost." The heat of her statement lingered in the air, leaving a charged silence punctuated only by the natural sounds of the street life around them. Lisa's heart raced, knowing she had crossed a threshold. This was not just about an appeal. It was about demanding accountability. In that moment, she understood something profound about her role as a police officer. It was not solely about enforcing laws, but also championing human dignity. The truth of her experience coiled around her heart as she met the mayor's gaze fiercely. Yet a nagging whisper curled through her thoughts, dangerously reminding her of the risks she faced. Would this battle be her undoing? Before any further words could fall from their lips, a loud bark broke the tension, surprising them both. Max, alert and eager, had arrived on the scene, sensing the urgency of the moment. The unexpected entrance snapped Lisa's awareness back into focus, and her mind raced. What could Max's reaction reveal about the mayor's stance? She suddenly found a new strategy at play, almost instinctively seeking collaboration with her partner. Lisa took a deep breath, preparing to pivot the conversation as the next phase of her advocacy journey loomed closer, the stakes impossibly higher. She wouldn't waver now. Her fight was just beginning. The question pulsated insistently within her. Could she turn this unexpected scene into leverage for the vulnerable? As determination surged, Lisa felt the weight of uncertainty twist again, propelling her forward into uncharted waters. Lisa focused on Max, her loyal partner, his presence a grounding force amidst the swirling chaos of her mind. The dog's sharp bark resonated, drawing attention away from the mayor momentarily. In that brief respite, Lisa recognized an opportunity. Max was not just a dog, he was a bridge to the community she served. His keen instincts often revealed what words could not: motives, emotions, and even unspoken connections. "Mr. Mayor," she began again, her voice firmer than before. "I know we often discuss the elderly in abstract terms, but what if I brought someone in to share their story? Someone who exemplifies the impact of these cuts. Someone who needs our help." The mayor shifted uncomfortably, and Lisa saw the flicker of hesitation again. It was her opening. Introducing a real person, an elderly resident perhaps, isn't merely a strategy. It could humanize the issue in your budget discussions, she pressed, watching for the slightest change in his stance. "We can either vote on dry figures or connect with our community. The choice is yours." He narrowed his eyes, measuring her words. "You think turning this into a personal anecdote is convincing?" "It's not a tale, sir, it's reality. And I believe that real life outweighs numbers on a spreadsheet." Lisa leaned in, challenging him to see the urgency in her proposal. Max wagged his tail, sensing her intensity, and Lisa could feel a tide of confidence rising within her. The mayor glanced down at the dog before meeting her gaze again, and she seized the moment to channel the animal's spirit. "Max here doesn't just protect. He understands when someone needs assistance. That instinct could inspire how we view our responsibilities. There was a moment of silent contemplation as the mayor faced Lisa. They were two opponents wrestling with their own ideologies, but Lisa felt the shift in power dynamics. She had morphed from a mere police officer into a voice for the vulnerable. Let's advocate for transparency in our decision-making processes. The community has the right to weigh in. You know that already. There was weight behind Lisa's words, as she recalled the moments when she had seen Max interact with the elderly during her patrol. The way he would sit beside a lonely resident, sensing sadness, providing comfort without expectation. Those were moments that mattered, and they needed to be recognized. The mayor's brow furrowed, betraying a conflict in his thoughts. It's not that simple, Lisa. There are implications. This goes beyond feelings. We have constituencies to appease. Is appeasing constituencies worth sacrificing lives? She shot back, her patience thinning. You owe it to the people you represent to hear their voices before making decisions that can push them further into despair. As she delivered her lines, doubt nagged at her resolve. Rousing change required more than passion. It demanded strategic thinking and understanding of the political landscape. Would this confrontation come back to haunt her professionally? Yet surrender was not an option. The air hung thick with tension as her words settled. Lisa could feel the pulse of uncertainty in the mayor, a crack beginning to form in his indifference. But then, an unexpected sound cut through her thoughts. A newspaper photographer approached, drawn by the commotion. "Are you two making headlines?" he called out, camera at the ready. A flash went off, illuminating the fractured moment. Suddenly the pressure shifted entirely, and Lisa found herself at a crossroads. How should she respond to this unexpected audience? There was potential here, but at what cost? Every instinct screamed for her to capitalize on this moment, to vocalize the struggle for the people she cared about. Yet she had to tread carefully. She didn't want to alienate the very man who held the key to their community's budget. "Mr. Mayor," she said, feeling the weight of the moment, "can we agree to allow a forum where our community members can speak? No names hidden, just truth? Let's face the scrutiny together." The mayor hesitated, his mouth opening slightly as if to protest, but Lisa knew she had reached an impasse. Behind the flashing camera, she could sense the vital opportunity beckoning. If he agreed, they could harness public sentiment and amplify the voices of the elderly. Yet uncertainty twirled in her stomach. Could she rely on him to honor his word? Would this be the beginning of a meaningful dialogue or a calculated trap intended to silence her appeals? And as the photographer's presence hung ominously in the air, Lisa realized that the next move could determine her path forward. This moment wasn't merely about advocating for budget changes. It was about her metamorphosis into a pivotal voice for change. The stakes were higher than ever. She had to decide quickly. Could she wrest control of this narrative, or would she allow fear to dictate her actions? The moment of truth was fast approaching, and Lisa steeled herself, ready to confront whatever lay ahead. As the camera flash faded, a nervous energy surged through Lisa. She had inadvertently placed herself in the spotlight, yet the reality was far from glamorous. The photographer stood poised, ready to capture the vibrancy of their exchange. And in that moment, every instinct told her to ensure that narrative didn't slip from her grasp. "Do we have an agreement, Mr. Mayor?" she pressed, aware that time was of the essence. The photographer fidgeted, waiting for the mayor's response, which would determine the direction of the story. Max, sensing her tension, instinctively scooted closer, grounding her amidst the uncertainty. The mayor's face contorted, grappling between public image and the moral imperative that hung in the air. Lisa watched closely, searching for any hint of vulnerability beneath his practiced facade. She had a fleeting image of herself in a well-tailored suit, manipulating public opinion. The thought sent a shiver through her. Was that what she aimed to become? He cleared his throat, casting a furtive glance at the crowd that had begun to gather around them. Well, what do you propose for this forum?" The timbre of his voice suggested she had struck a nerve, a sign that her earlier insistence had shaken him. Lisa seized this momentum, unwilling to relent. "Let's hold it next week. I can gather a small panel of residents, provide them the microphone to share their realities. We can orchestrate it at the senior center. I'll handle the logistics. Logistics, yes, but have you considered where it may lead? His tone served as a warning. What if people lash out? What if their cries echo louder than the numbers? Then we listen, she replied, her voice unyielding. The louder their stories become, the harder it is for the council to ignore them. That's the point, isn't it? His lips tightened, and for a moment she thought he would resist her still. Yet hope ignited faintly in her chest, love for those she served urging her forward. What good is leadership if it doesn't respond to the people? It's time for a reckoning, sir. I won't let our most vulnerable dilate in the shadows of indifference, not on my watch. The onlookers shifted, a murmur beginning to ripple through them. She felt the presence of the photographer behind her again. Every word was being amplified, shot through a lens that could scrutinize or glorify. Fine, you have your forum. But I will be there, the mayor conceded begrudgingly. But understand this, Lisa, there are risks. You'll need to prepare for the fallout as much as for the applause. Overwhelming relief coursed through her. He had agreed, albeit under duress. Nevertheless, doubt settled in her mind like a cloud heavy with rain. What kinds of risks, she wondered. How could she ensure the voices of the elderly wouldn't simply lead to backlash, but rather accountability? It was like venturing into a storm without an umbrella. As the impromptu gathering dispersed, Max remained by her side, his comforting presence reminding her of the responsibility now resting on her shoulders. "All right, buddy," she murmured, kneeling to scratch behind his ears. "We're in this together. You've seen how their stories matter." She unsheathed her phone, recognizing her next task, to tell the narratives that truly needed to be heard, to seek out the characters who inhabited the stories of loneliness and loss. But rising adrenaline mingled with anxiety. She needed to ensure the right residents would step up to share their truths. And the realization struck like a thunderbolt. Many wouldn't step forward without encouragement. Each story would need coaxing, and what remained were their faces, etched with a lifetime of experience, awaiting validation. "Let's start canvassing tomorrow," she said to Max, determination painting her features. "We'll find our voices." Yet a small voice in her head tugged at her. Had she painted this picture bigger than it could be? What if all her work led to eventual disillusionment? The emotional stakes rose, nudging her towards the edge of self-doubt. As she rose to her feet, staring into the distance of the city that often felt like a battleground, a nagging thought echoed within. She knew she had ignited a spark, but could she sustain it before it faded? A clock ticked ominously in her mind, and the question loomed overhead. How far was she willing to push the limits of her courage to protect those who had no voice? As dawn broke, Lisa lingered beneath the glaring fluorescent lights of her modest kitchen. The remnants of last night's discussion still hovered in the air. The mayor's reluctant concession replayed in her mind, a persistent echo. She sipped her coffee, unsure whether to embrace the day or retreat into the comfort of her doubts. Today changes everything, doesn't it, Max? She glanced down at her canine companion, whose wagging tail promised solidarity. The decisions she made would not only impact her career, they could redefine the narratives of the city's most vulnerable. Yet, as she left her apartment, a tight knot formed in the pit of her stomach, a foreboding reminder of what lay ahead. The first visit was to the local senior housing complex. As she approached, the scent of freshly cut grass mingled with the faint perfume of blooming flowers, a stark contrast to the shadows of uncertainty that loomed within. Her heart raced. She was about to plunge into something much larger than herself. Would they share their stories? Would they trust her? "Okay, Max, time to work," she said, her voice barely masking her tremor. She scanned the courtyard, spotting a group of residents. Slowly, she made her way over. "Good morning, everyone," Lisa called, her tone lighter than her heart. They greeted her with hesitant smiles, whispers of recognition warming the charged atmosphere. "I'm here to talk. I want to hear your stories. It's important." The words hung in the air, heavy as lead. The first response was a pair of curious eyes from a woman named Ellen. With shaky hands, she gestured for Lisa to join her at the table. "What stories can we tell that matter?" Ellen asked, her voice cracking slightly. The question pierced Lisa, igniting her internal conflict. How could she promise them their voices would be heard when her own fears loomed so large? Every story matters, she replied, choosing conviction over uncertainty. Every single one. I want people to listen so that change can happen. Determined, she leaned closer, her earnestness visible. We can make a difference together. That realization, the weight of collective voices weighed against her scruples, garnered the attention of more residents. Bit by bit, stories emerged. Lives unfolded like petals in the morning sun. Yet with each revelation came a haunting fear. What if those realities clashed with the established order, triggering retaliation? As she scribbled notes, absorbing every word, she felt the layers of her purpose shift. No longer was it merely about the stories. It was about bravery, the kind that demanded a willingness to confront powers that be. Lisa's hand quivered as she wrote, and she paused, battling the images of potential backlash. What if the mayor retaliated against her decisions? What if he silenced not just her, but them? Lisa, Ellen's voice shattered her reverie. Are you all right? Yeah, I'm just thinking, she said, forcing a smile. But Ellen's penetrating gaze revealed that her concern reached deeper, like the roots of an old tree, unyielding yet beautifully intertwined. It's a lot to carry, Ellen sympathized. But know this, our stories need a voice. The world needs to hear them, and we're glad you're here. Appreciation washed over Lisa, infusing her with a renewed sense of purpose. Reflecting on their words, she felt a hidden strength begin to blossom within her. Could she channel this energy into tangible action? Was it possible to cultivate courage instead of fear? As she wrapped up the visit and headed home, Lisa's mind was a whirlwind of ideas and emotions. Each story she had collected felt like a piece of a puzzle she had yet to comprehend. They were not mere anecdotes. They were lives, and they were now intricately tied to her identity. The stakes were climbing, casting shadows over her resolve. Would the community rally around their shared truths, or would the cacophony of dissent drown out their voices? Tonight, she had to confront whether she could bear the weight of expectation. The clock was ticking. The forum loomed. As she nestled into her surgery with Max, darkness settled around them, and a question pulsated in her mind. What was she truly prepared to risk for these stories that demanded to be told? Tomorrow promised a confrontation she could not avoid, and with it, the chance to finally unveil what lay tangled within. With the morning sun filtering through her curtains, Lisa jolted awake, the weight of the upcoming day pressing down on her chest. Today wasn't just a forum, it was a potential turning point. The stakes were staggeringly high, and she felt the enormity of the task in every fiber of her being. The stories she had gathered were no longer just names on a page. They represented lives, dreams, and voices she had pledged to elevate. Max, she murmured, brushing her hand over the dog's fur. It's showtime. Her breakfast sat untouched, her mind racing through the various scenarios that played out in the forum. As she donned her blazer, a symbol of authority, Lisa felt a surge of resolve, but it was quickly overshadowed by anxious thoughts. Could she command the room? What if the mayor's dissent turned hostile? Arriving at the venue, she was greeted by a palpable buzz. Activists, citizens, and those affected crowded the entrance, all seeking change but differing in their expectations of the event. Each face she passed felt like a reflection of her own anxiety, some hopeful, others skeptical. Taking a deep breath, Lisa stepped onto the stage, her heart slamming against her ribcage. She scanned the audience, locking eyes with familiar faces. Ellen, nodding with encouragement, and others she had spoken to, whose struggles hung in the air between them. You all have stories, she began, her voice gaining confidence as she spoke. Stories that matter. Together we can weave a narrative that demands recognition. Today, we confront the shadows and shed light on the truths that need to be heard. As she spoke, Lisa noticed a shift in the atmosphere. The audience leaned in, captivated by the weight of her words. A sudden wave of exhilaration surged through her, propelling her forward. Every tale she had collected surged in her mind like a tidal wave of emotion. They had entrusted her with these fragments of themselves. I stand here not only representing my voice, she continued, but the voices of the seniors who have bravely spoken up about their challenges, of the marginalized who fight to be recognized. Laughter erupted as a charismatic elderly gentleman shared a humorous anecdote, breaking through the subtle tension. The audience, now animated, engaged with his story, and Lisa felt an unexpected connection flicker among them all. For the first time that day, she realized that vulnerability might spark the courage for change. But just as the energy soared, a familiar figure hurled an unexpected weight onto her shoulders. The mayor strode through the entrance, his expression a mask of irritation. The air thickened with apprehension, and Lisa's confidence wavered. The mayor took the microphone, dismissing the ambiance Lisa had worked to create. "This is not how we facilitate change," he declared, voice booming. "Talk of stories won't replace our pragmatic policies." Lisa's heart sank at the condescending tone. She felt the room shrink around her, the audience's previous enthusiasm now cloaked in a blanket of unease. Yet, a resolute fire ignited within her. "Policies are made by people," she countered, her voice trembling but firm. "Those policies affect the very lives we're discussing today. Ignoring the stories is failing to understand the impact." The crowd responded with tentative applause, and Lisa breathed in their energy as if drawing strength from each clapping hand. The mayor's eyes narrowed, and an unmistakable tension gripped the room, but Lisa stood her ground, invigorated by the support of those present. Today she would challenge not only the mayor but her own limits, and she could feel a transformation occurring deep within. This moment wouldn't break her, it would forge her. As the discussion progressed, Lisa realized her fight wasn't just for the stories. It was for her own narrative, a personal awakening rooted in resilience and determination amid adversity. But as the mayor's temper rose and further confrontation loomed, her internal battle reignited. How far was she willing to push? What was the cost? With the forum spiraling in unexpected directions, Lisa's voice trembled with uncertainty and growing resolve. Was she ready for the ramifications of her stand against the established order? In the eye of the storm, Lisa wondered, would the narrative formed from her courage be enough to shield her and her community from the backlash that was undeniably on the horizon? The atmosphere was charged, and every eye seemed to pierce through Lisa as if weighing her motives. The mayor's dismissive tone reverberated in her mind, amplifying her self-doubt. Yet, amidst the pressure, a flicker of resolve kept her anchored. Wasn't the very essence of her mission to challenge these structures? She felt the adrenaline coursing through her veins, an unfamiliar thrill igniting her will. "Let's not just endure our stories," she continued, regaining her footing. "Let's learn from them. Each account is a testament to the strength we possess in adversity. We shouldn't shy away from exposing the truths that lay beneath policy papers." The crowd responded to her intensity. Nods of agreement rippled through the audience like waves. Lisa caught Ellen's encouraging grin from the back, a beacon of support, reminding her of why she had taken this step. But the mayor's presence loomed like a shadow, constantly reminding her of the stakes. Her advancements, both personal and professional, were at risk. As the discourse deepened, she systematically began deconstructing the mayor's arguments. Each counterpoint she presented was a quiet rebellion against the condescension he embodied. Lisa felt transformed. Words flowed less from anxiety and more from deep-seated conviction. She realized that standing her ground was not merely about the forum, it was an assertion of her own identity. Between the tension-filled exchanges, she caught herself wondering how far she could push back without losing the trust of her supporters. Was this confrontation a catalyst for change or a potential pitfall? She gripped the podium tighter. Each story she represented now felt like a part of her own. The elderly gentleman's earlier laughter echoed in her thoughts. Humor and vulnerability were potent tools in their own right. If he could stand in the face of adversity and share his narrative, so could she. "We can advocate for pragmatic policies, yes," she called back at the mayor. "But let's not forget the human experiences that shape them. Isn't that where the true strength of our community lies?" The applause began to swell again, a comforting affirmation that resonated within her. She realized she might have found her voice, not just for others, but for herself. It felt liberating. Yet, with every cheer, came the sharp edge of the reality that the mayor would not let this stand unchallenged. "Enough of this emotional plea, Lisa," he interjected, the steel in his voice now palpable. "We must stay grounded in reality. What you're promoting is idealistic and impractical." His words were a calculated jab, aiming for her vulnerabilities. Lisa felt her heart race, but she quelled the fear. Confronting him directly had become her trial by fire. Anger bubbled beneath the surface. How dare he belittle the experiences of those who had entrusted her with their pain? Rising above the doubt, she countered. "Idealism is the first step toward progress. If we strip our policies of their humanity, we risk leading a society that turns a blind eye to suffering. My concern is for the people, not just the policies." The tension hung thick in the air as the crowd erupted in affirmations of her strength. Yet with every exchange, she sensed the undercurrents of retribution from the mayor and his followers. She felt the weight of what could come next: discrediting, threats, possibly more severe repercussions. As the discussion wore on, Lisa shifted uncomfortably. Standing her ground was exhilarating, but it was also terrifying. The stakes were rising, and she felt exposed. With her internal resolve clashing against the fear of reprisal, Lisa questioned how far she was willing to go. In that moment, as a palpable uncertainty gripped her, she realized this was not just about resisting the mayor. This was about transforming herself. If she wished to lead and inspire, she had to brace for the consequences, accept them as part of this newfound identity. Could she maintain this trajectory of empowerment amidst the escalating conflict? The urge to withdraw was strong, but the pull of courage began to overshadow it. As she prepared for further confrontation, a singular thought entered her mind. Was she truly ready to face the repercussions head-on, and how might that shape the next chapter of her life? In the heart of this moment, where vulnerability met defiance, Lisa's next move would define more than just the forum. It would shape the course of her entire journey. The hum of the crowd faded into the background as Lisa stood at the podium, her pulse echoing the gravity of her situation. The mayor's gaze bore into her with the weight of authority, and she could almost feel the judgment radiating from him. But this moment was no longer just about the conversation. It was about who she was becoming. Determination surged through her as she gathered her thoughts, each one a stepping stone toward the kind of leader she yearned to be. The warmth of Ellen's support still glowed in her heart, a reminder of the trust others had placed in her. I owe it to them, Lisa thought, to push through this. The mayor attempted to regain control, reshaping the narrative. You're naive, Lisa. How do you expect unrealistic ideals to turn into actionable policies? His criticism stoked a fire within her, igniting a newfound clarity. She realized his challenge was an echo of her own previous doubts. Naivety, she whispered to herself, sharpening her focus, is merely the point where hope begins. With that in mind, she stepped into the confrontation like a soldier preparing for battle. I believe without dreams we cannot create solutions, she replied with steely resolve. The policies we enact should serve humanity first. Isn't that what good governance is about? If we allow our fears to dictate our actions, won't we lose everything? The crowd stirred again, energized by her conviction. They were becoming an ally in her struggle, shifting her perception of community from something abstract to something tangible. But the mayor remained unyielding, throwing his weight behind a wave of skepticism. Emotional rhetoric will only lead to disappointment, he countered, his voice rising. Your stories are compelling, but where are the facts? Facts deliver results. Facts can be skinned and shaped until they tell a pretty lie, Lisa shot back, tapping into her newfound resilience. But the truth, our truths, are rooted in shared experiences that shape us. Can we dismiss our lives to fit an agenda? I won't allow it. In that moment, she tapped into a reservoir of strength she didn't know existed. Lisa felt connected to those stories, the struggles and the victories of each individual that rushed through her mind. She had come here to speak for them, to fight for their narratives, and yet she found herself championing her own awakening. But even as the words flowed, doubts lingered like shadows just out of reach. What impact would her confrontation have on her future? Could she face retaliation, not just from the mayor, but from those who might see her as a radical disruptor? Amidst this turmoil, she recognized a pivotal opportunity. This wasn't just a confrontation, it was a moment of reinvention. Thinking back on her prior hesitations, she understood they stemmed from fear of failure. But as she prepared her next statement, she resolved she would no longer be shackled by fear. "I'm not here to offer idealism without action," Lisa proclaimed. "I'm here to advocate for a change that prioritizes humanity's experiences. Let us draft policies not just on paper, but built upon the foundation of real lives." Each word seemed to draw strength from the collective stories that had now mingled with her own. The applause grew, swelling powerfully, feeding her confidence. Yet still, she felt the undercurrents of tension, a reminder that her journey was fraught with challenges. She sensed that the mayor was stepping back, recalibrating. With the battle lines drawn, Lisa understood the stakes had escalated. As her thoughts swirled, her internal narrative crystallized. This was no longer simply about a policy debate. It was the threshold of her transformation. Each word, every exchange, had propelled her into an authentic self, a voice for change. The next phase awaited her, one that rose from this confrontation. Could she seize the momentum she had built? Would her newfound courage withstand the pushback expected from the mayor's camp? As she surveyed the crowd in that charged atmosphere, inspired yet anxious, Lisa realized the moment had come. The challenge she faced ahead wasn't only external, but deeply internal. Becoming the leader she aspired to be, stretching beyond her comfort and into a future unwritten, with all its myriad possibilities yet to unfold. The real test wouldn't just be in this forum. It loomed closer at home, where she would have to confront her fears of failure head-on. Would she be ready? The forum room buzzed with energy, resonating with the voices of those who longed for change. Lisa, fueled by conviction and clarity, felt her nerves transmogrify into a steely determination. She had stepped into her purpose, no longer just a police officer, but an advocate for those who had given her the courage to fight. As the mayor regained his footing, his voice reverberated against the walls, echoing past doubts. These emotional appeals won't hold up against fiscal responsibility or the complexities of our city's needs. You lack the bigger picture, Lisa. But in that moment, Lisa understood that boldness bred clarity, and she was ready to connect the dots. Mr. Mayor, it's not just about numbers but about the hearts behind them. Each cut represents a life, a history. We can't ignore the personal stories that inform policy. She took a deep breath, gathering the strength within her. Let me share what I've learned. Each person I spoke with was not just another statistic. They articulated resilience and love for their community, even when faced with uncertainty. The energy shifted as she continued to speak. This isn't a simple matter of balance sheets versus emotional narratives. This is about accountability. If we are to enact change, we must listen to the voices of our most vulnerable citizens. As Lisa's words wrapped around the audience, she spotted familiar, supportive faces. Ellen and a few others she had connected with. Their unwavering trust invigorated her resolve, igniting the fire of sincerity deep within her. But doubt still lingered. What if the mayor rebuffed her again? Would he twist her vulnerability into something that could undermine her cause? With those apprehensive thoughts swirling, she pressed on. We want to craft a budget that reflects our values, not just our restrictions. This forum is a start, but it needs to blossom into sustained dialogue. Let's prioritize empathy, alongside economic responsibility. The crowd erupted into applause, their enthusiasm a buoyant wave pushing her forward. Yet she sensed the mayor growing frantic, his facade cracking. He flashed an exasperated glance, a flicker of desperation passing across his face. Enough of this fairy tale, Lisa. He raised his hands in dismissal. The decisions are complex, and you simply don't grasp the implications. His words rolled like thunder, threatening to drown out her clarity. But she had stood on the precipice of change, and the fall had made her stronger. I am learning, she asserted, projecting her voice with the precision of a stone skipping across glassy waters. But over these past weeks I have seen how fear and bureaucracy can distort our priorities. I've listened to the stories of those who feel their hopes are vanishing. We have a chance, right here, to advocate for them. Max, steadfast by her side, thumped his tail, perfectly in sync with the swell of emotions around them. Lisa reached down, resting her hand on his fur, a reminder of her commitment to act not just for her own gain, but for those whom she was honored to serve. The mayor, sensing the momentum shifting, attempted another ploy. You threaten to weaponize emotions against fiscal prudence. On the contrary, Lisa countered, what I do urge is that we amplify these true experiences as the bedrock of our policy, the emotional fabric that weaves our community together. Witnessing the camaraderie in the room fortified her resolve, electric with support. Each person present had a role in shaping their collective future. I encourage us all to step forward, the elders, the caregivers, the families, to share how these proposed cuts will rip apart the very fabric of the community we cherish. At last she saw it. The mayor, while impassioned, was finally beginning to falter. The audience, now rallying, stirred with a shared understanding of the stakes. But what about her own stakes? How far was she willing to go when the repercussions settled in? Would the mayor retaliate personally? Yet she found peace amidst the uncertainty, the shifting tides of her courage steadfast against everything. In a poignant moment, she locked eyes with the mayor and proclaimed, "We can forge a path together for progress that respects our fiscal obligations. We must lead with compassion, building policies that reflect the community's needs, not isolate them." The applause intensified, almost overwhelming. In that current of shared belief, Lisa felt more grounded than she had ever known. A tangible accomplishment was within reach, further igniting her spirit. The mayor took a deep breath, cheeks flushed, an unmistakable challenge attracting wider scrutiny. "All right, Lisa, let's see if this dialogue can truly lead somewhere meaningful." He had finally reached across the divide. Lisa sensed her heart race, not with fear, but with the thrill of possibility opening wide in front of them. The confluence of their narratives marked the beginning of real change. A sigh of relief washed over her as the room erupted into conversations. This was her moment, not just for herself, but for a greater purpose born from a tapestry of interconnected stories. The path to advocating for the vulnerable had been harrowing, but she had emerged victorious, not just for them, but for her own growth. She had transcended her own apprehensions, proven her mettle through the crucible of confrontation, and forged an undeniable bond with her community. Lisa had transformed from a timid officer seeking approval into a bold bearer of responsibility, ready to wield her voice as an instrument of change. This was more than a victory. It was her rebirth, fueled by an unyielding belief that their stories mattered and would resonate deeply in the fabric of community and policy alike. As the crowd began to disperse, Lisa turned to Max, relief washing over her. Together, they had started something, and she recognized that her journey had only just begun. With renewed confidence, she glanced at the horizon, a storm of challenges ahead, ready to meet a brighter future, the kind that had been waiting for her all along. She had conquered not only the conflict before her, but the fears that had once held her captive. And in this enlightening moment, she knew one thing for certain: she would never turn back. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.